There's a neural connection from your gut to your brain.
So you're telling me that your gut calls for the fast food? I'm here with
Martin Moritz.
Martin. What do you do? And what's your company? What do you do exactly?
My company is called Optimised Living Solutions, and I'm a lifestyle consultant. Basically, what I do is I help people find their optimized living solution, pretty much just getting them to the best version of themselves that they can be.
Well, as I was saying when I spoke to you the first time, currently the younger generation are trying to become more health conscious, but with social media plugging so many different things like, the Sigma male being created, so people think that, well, let me copy what's done in American Psycho, the movie, because that's optimized living. Let me follow what some guru is saying on the internet, and that's optimized living. But really, people are unsure about how many hours to sleep, what to eat, what to do with fast food, how to consume social media, and how to optimize their life. So I thought I'd talk to you about it, and I actually asked a lot of my friends the questions that they would like answered, and they gave me a bunch of them. So I thought I'd ask you them. We've got several topics, as I said: sleep, nutrition, social media, fast food, going to the gym, working out. And so I wanted to ask you them so that perhaps someone can benefit from our little conversation about how to optimize your life.
Sure. Look, just in a nutshell, pretty much it's understanding your body. As I explained to you earlier, it's about establishing your genetic equation. Once you know what your genes and your DNA is and the sequences thereof is, what they're comprised of, and basically what it is that your body needs, then you can address that. Once you've established that genetic equation, then you can look, say, okay, well, now I know what it is that my body needs, then I can give it to it. And it's not just nutrition, it's not just different forms of exercise. For example, I train extremely high intensity, but it's because that's for my personality and my body type. I'm very high energy, I can also get stressed out quite easily, so high intensity training works for me. I have other clients that do rock climbing, some that do swimming. It doesn't have to be just going to the gym. It's a matter of what works best for you.
Okay, so the first question I had, the first bunch of questions was about nutrition. How do you increase your metabolic rate, and what do you eat during that increase in metabolic rate?
First of all, it'll be through exercise. High intensity training would give you the highest yield in your basal metabolic rate. Nutrition-wise, it will be whole grains, lean proteins, as lean as possible. Because the moment you introduce fat or carbs, you have different responses with carbs. You have an insulin response. With fat, you have different kinds of responses as well. And basically that then will negatively impact your metabolic rate. Spicy foods.
Yeah, spicy foods is good.
Yeah, good.
Really? Wow, spicy food. Well, a lot of my friends like to do HIIT training. Okay, they'll do some F45. They'll do a lot of high intensity training. And they'll follow this with, a very juicy dessert, like a great slice of cheesecake, thinking, well, it's going to balance it out, So what's your take on that?
No, not at all. By spiking your insulin directly after training, you're actually destroying all the hard work that you've just done. As you mentioned when we spoke earlier, exactly that. Once you've done a training session, you're still in fat burning mode, and your body is still very anabolic, and your metabolic rate is high. So you want to keep it like that. So by ingesting anything that'll spike your insulin, it's going to do the opposite. So no, this is the only time where I kind of would advocate perhaps a protein shake, because most people, it's difficult to eat a piece of meat or like a chicken fillet or something directly after you've trained. But if you are hungry within 30 minutes or so, a good quality whey protein would probably be good. Yeah.
Let's talk about burning fats versus burning carbs.
Two different forms of energy source. We're designed to process both. I particularly prefer burning fat as an energy source, but in my opinion, for most longevity and just overall well-being, it's better to burn fat as an energy source. But if you're a high performance athlete, long distance athlete, just an extreme athlete, someone who's really putting their bodies through the paces, then carbs is going to be a must.
So we're in Qatar and Ramadan's coming up. What's your take on fasting?
Fasting is an amazing tool. It is probably the most natural thing that we can do. Our bodies are designed to tap into our natural fat resources and also just to deposit fat. We're designed to hold energy and to store it for whenever it's needed. Fasting in Ramadan I know it's more for religious reasons, but I love it. I think it's a phenomenal practice and has extreme health benefits.
When it comes to optimizing your life, there's, I'm guilty of it myself. I'll be up a few hours a night scrolling my social media, looking at my feeds, catching up on emails. I find I'm tired sometimes. And then some days I'll sleep a lot. Some days I'll sleep a number of hours. I'm still tired the next day. How many hours should a person sleep?
That's a very good question. According to the studies, it's between 6 and 8. And this is generalized because it can be different for the individual. It really can. But in general, it's between 6 and 8. And often they find that it's sometimes better to sleep either 6 or 8 than 7. Because when you're sleeping, your sleep cycles go in 90 minutes. It's every hour and a half. So sometimes when you break it in the middle of a sleep cycle, it'll actually leave you wanting and leave you tired. So that's possibly what you're feeling. Also, there's other factors. How much deep sleep, theta, are you getting? How much REM are you getting? How much core sleep are you getting? How many interruptions at night are you having? These are all things that add to your sleep. Blue light, for example, phones and laptops, before you go to bed, it's probably the worst thing you can do because it feeds certain photons and neurons through the eyes and into the brain, and it's telling your brain that it's still a certain time of the day. Our sleep is dependent on our circadian rhythms, and it goes back to a more primal, more initial part of when we started as human beings. We went to bed and when the sun went down, pretty much. We didn't stay awake much longer than that. You would have a fire, and shortly after the sun would go down, within an hour or two, you would go sleep.
A lot of my friends and my followers are very interested in bulking up and getting muscle. So I had 2 questions about that, which was, what should a person take or do in order to have a bulky body? Okay, and how does a person become lean?
It's simple. It's calorie intake and calorie expenditure. Pretty much, if you want to be lean, you have to expend more calories than you consume. And if you want to store, then you have to consume more calories than you expend. So it's really as simple as that.
So it really is.
To get more muscle, that would require weight training. You would have to do some form of resistance training in order to stimulate the muscle, give it a reason to grow, to be bigger.
About a year and a half ago, I got into meal prep. I found a company, it's a great company. They were prepping my meals for me, sending it to me in a box. They'd send me meals for about 3 days. And they'd send me some protein, they'd send me a breakfast. I did it for about a month. I stopped because I thought, well, I could do this myself. The meals were not rocket science. So what's your take on meal prep, first of all? And my second question was, can a person do meal prep for themselves? If so, what should they include?
Look, when it comes to meal prep company, it's difficult. You just have to find one that's reputable, one that is going to give you quality whole foods and sourced in the right way. You never know what you're getting in terms of food when it's prepared for you. When you make it yourself, you know exactly. So I do prefer making my own food, but of course not everyone has the time for that. So as long as it's a reputable company, I think you should be fine, because they're not going to really give you a lot of processed foods. It's still going to be whole foods. You're going to have veggies and meat and things like that. And then as far as prepping your own meals, it's time consuming.
I started using an air fryer, for example. Is that useful? Because obviously it's...
Love it. Air fryers are great. Cooking your food can definitely damage it. If you really want optimized health, eating your food in the most whole form is going to be best. And the more you cook it, the more extreme heat you expose it to, the more it's going to deteriorate the value of the food.
I got you. Okay, well, That's a win for air fryers, because there's a lot of bad press about air fryers now, and I'm not sure if it's, where that bad press is coming from. But personally, I'm able to put a whole chicken breast in there. It cooks it. Put a bit of light seasoning onto it, and I know what I put in there. I know what I'm getting out of it. I lightly season it, cook it, bring it out, and it works really well. It's a very useful tool, because it's like you said, it gives you whole food. I know there's some cooking involved, but it's as light as it could possibly be.
No, the air fryer is phenomenal, and it's minimal damage to the food. There was recently I found a study that actually showed that the more we process, even just taking your fruit and putting it in a smoothie, you're actually losing quite a bit. The whole argument about whole grain. I like to follow a professor. His name is Professor Lustig, and he's very clued up when it comes to this stuff. And he's actually proved that that we were never designed to eat even grains that were highly processed. We can the husk that you find within a grain actually. We don't have the enzymes to digest it, so it passes through the stomach with all the hydrochloric acid, and then is absorbed in the smaller intestine, and then you're getting your value. But the moment you crush it up and you dissolve it into a powder, it becomes rancid, and you've actually lost all of the nutritional value.
We talked about meal prep. We talked about healthy food and the benefits you can get from having whole foods. But and I'm guilty of this myself, but I do sometimes like a little bit of fast food. But so I wanted your professional opinion on, and I know it's bad for me, but what's your opinion on fast food? Why is it so bad for you? And what do you make of the current pandemic? Okay, I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about the pandemic, where people can order fast food simply from their phones.
It is so highly processed. There is so much information to show us how much strain it puts on the liver, the kidneys, the heart. There's no nutritional value, and it is an addiction. It's an addiction of convenience and an addiction of ingredients. Actually, what they've put in there, because they will put foods in that will make it more addictive. They will put ingredients in that will make it extremely high fats and a lot of trans fats. Now, you've got a lot of different kinds of fats. There's 7 in total, and trans fats are the devil. There's nothing good about it. Your body cannot process it, and in fast foods are usually contain trans fats.
So I remember, without naming specific brands, okay, I remember when I spoke to you first, you said fast food is the devil. What does a person do if they're addicted? I was with my friends the other day, and one of them was saying, "Oh, I'm craving some nuggets," and it was this craving that came from his core. It was like this primal craving for nuggets, which doesn't make any sense, but that's where it came from. It was come from his gut. What do you do if you're...
It does come from the gut. Sorry, I'm interrupting, but yes, it comes from the gut. So basically, gut health is the be all and end all, in my opinion, of overall health. And and what it's all about is having an extremely diverse microbiome. The more different kinds of bacteria you have, the better. The more diversity you have in your gut. And if you're constantly feeding it certain foods, it will develop certain bacteria according to those foods. So if you're having nuggets, it's gonna feed those bacteria that love those nuggets, the bad ones, and those little bacteria will actually send signals
in your gut.
Will send signals through your gut to your brain. There's an actual there's a neural connection from your gut to your brain.
So you're telling me that your gut calls for the fast food?
You are craving it because exactly, it's trained. The moment we find, when we take someone, we break their diet, start them from scratch, and we introduce a whole bunch of good foods, like fermented foods, like sauerkraut, kimchi. These are wonderful foods, and they strengthen the good bacteria. And the more you eat of that, the more you will find those kinds of bacteria. There was a study done in Japan, I'll find it for you, where...
I'll put it in the description.
They introduced a certain kind of seaweed into certain people's diets, and the more often they ate this seaweed...
I've heard about this seaweed.
Then they started cultivating, out of the blue, they started finding a very specific kind of bacteria, which they never ever saw before. But the more they ate of this seaweed, the more they found of this bacteria, because this seaweed was the food for this particular bacteria. And there only had to be just one in there. And the more that the seaweed came, the more this bacteria started to cultivate, and which is a good thing. So if the more you eat rubbish, the more you're going to cultivate bad bacteria. The more you eat whole foods and good quality foods, and vice versa. I mean, I used to battle with constipation and all kinds of things, but I obsessively studied gut health about 4 or 5 years ago, and like I said, it's the be all and end all.
So the way you want to cut that out is basically by training your guts. You've got to basically wean yourself off it. You got to wean it off. You got to just.
It's a weaning off and an introduction of. Correct.
I wanted now you to talk to you about a different kind of addiction, which is taking over the young people. Now, I know it's a bit ironic that we're putting this video out on social media, but I think it's a different strand of media. It's like saying all media is, the news, for example, is good because it's informative. I would say this is an informative discussion. But what's your opinion on social media and a person's daily, you have the 5 food groups, right? I covered a cooking lesson once because the cooking teacher was unwell. And I actually learned with the kids about the 5 food groups. But there's 4 social media food groups: TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram. And a young person right now cannot go through the day without consuming from one, if not all, of these social media food groups. One of my students, I think, had the phone taken away and was given a brick phone, and it was like their life was over because they didn't know how to continue, how to function. How has this taken over, culture?
It's an epidemic of mass proportions, and it really is a problem. And I in the words of Einstein, and don't quote me exactly, but he said something in the lines of, "I rue the day that our technology surpasses our humanity." And we're there. We're there. This is where we're at.
We are there. We are there.
My techie's laughing at me right now because he's an absolute tech genius. He's much younger than me. He's a different generation. But when I got hold of him, he was spending hours on Instagram and Facebook and things like that and TikTok. And now he was fat and depressed and just pretty much useless. He couldn't do anything properly. Now he's a fully functioning machine that is productive and sharp and focused. And, he's just a different kind of person altogether. And one of the first things we did was bring down that social media time. So he's actually got an app on his phone that whenever he spends longer than like 5 minutes, it just cuts him off.
Starts alerting.
Sure.
It cuts him off. Does it cut the internet off as well?
Yeah, and what we saw was, it's surprising. People don't realize how much time in a day, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours easily, that they're actually spending in totality. And first of all, the negative feedback that's coming from this. I mean, people are, like you said, you've got all these influencers, and there is some good to it. But unfortunately, it's lost in translation with all the rubbish.
Lost in translation.
That is coming through. I mean, people, like you have all these influencers, and people want to be like them. But first of all, what you're seeing is photoshopped. It's unreal. It's unnatural. It's not true. You trying to live to a standard that's unrealistic.
It's like trying to live your life to a Hollywood movie after the film has been processed and edited and recolored and reshaded, okay? And you can't. It's impossible. There's no way you're going to match, okay? As much as you might, try to make yourself look good and so on, you're not going to match because there's teams behind those stars. There's teams behind the movie, and there's now teams behind one influencer.
No, you do. You got a whole team behind one person, making this person projecting this image of perfection, but they are far from perfect.
Yeah, I tell young people, I'm like, guys, I'm a child of the 90s, okay? And you know what? Our life was more wholesome. Media was the television. It was a box. It had 5 channels in the UK.
MTV was good back in those days.
Yeah, TV was good back in the days. It wasn't politicized and so on. Okay. And if I picked up my telephone, it was to make a call. Okay. And I had to do it through the house phone, by the way, because, we had no cell phone. You had to call your friend's house, your friend's mama to pick up and be like, "Hi, can I speak to so-and-so?" She'd be like, "Great." I didn't pick up my phone and have to see someone's life displayed in front of me to become depressed and upset about my own life, thinking, well, I'm not enough. What I have isn't enough. And imagine the toll it takes in a young person's sense of identity because, when you're growing up, you feel that you're trying to find your place in the world and figure out what's what and what's going on. Imagine you're given these false stories and false accounts where people think, oh, well, that's what success looks like. I must be living at the bottom, the bottom of the garbage pile. And it can affect, confidence and just your sense of well-being. I sometimes tell a lot of young people that Do not consume social media like that. If you want to consume it purely for entertainment and for informative purposes, but never consume it in terms of that's what life is. You know, watch the news, it's great. Watch a funny clip of a cat trying to jump off a shelf, that's fine, okay? But don't think it's reality, because it really isn't.
100%. One of my favorite actors is a guy named Cillian Murphy, Peaky Blinders.
Oh yeah, I know Cillian Murphy. Yeah,
So when they asked Cillian Murphy, like myself, why do you not have any social media? You don't have Instagram.
I saw that clip.
And he was just like, I'm too old for that stuff. And I love that. Basically, he was saying is that I'm no longer a child that needs constant validation, that needs constant.
That's what it is. That's what it is. These influencers need that validation. Okay.
They need that to feel them, make themselves feel secure. I'm highly secure within myself. I don't need anyone to tell me that I'm awesome. I know I am.
You set your goals out. This is how I see it. You set your goals out, okay? And when you achieve those goals, you give yourself validation. Well, I've achieved them. Those are my goals. I've achieved them. I don't need 100 people to tell me, oh, well done, okay? And you know what? The people that's going to be very ironic, but the people I feel really sorry for are the content creators, because what they don't realize is that their life is passing. Well, there's two strands. They don't realize what they're doing. Okay, in that they're influencing young people in very negative ways based on the content they produce. But on the other side, they're missing out on life. They're not going to get these years back. They're not going to get these years back where and I've done it. It takes time to set up a camera, to film a clip, to film the other angle. You don't get that time back. You certainly don't get that time back with your family, with your friends. Okay, if you're too busy posting a birthday party that you were in, you're not going to remember that birthday party. You weren't in the moment.
100%.
You have to live the moment, because if you don't live the moment, that moment isn't going to come knocking on your door when you're in your 70s and 80s, thinking, "Hey, you can live this moment now." No, it's gone. That moment has passed.
One of my favorite authors is a guy named Eckhart Tolle, very famous book, The Power of Now. And right in there, he explains this exact scenario. He explains in that book how important it is to live in the moment and not. So Confucius says, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. There's no better solution than living in the present and just experiencing every moment. We're here for experiences. We're not here to make millions of dollars and be super at this or the best at that. We're here to live life and experience it. Because like you said, once it's gone, it's gone. None of those things are going to matter. When I spoke to an older gentleman, one of my clients, I said to him, how is it like being old? He says, you know what?
Yeah.
When I'm on my deathbed, which will not probably be too long from now, I said, I'm not going to regret the things that I did. I'm going to regret the things that I did not do, that I didn't get around to do, because I was too busy with rubbish, with trying to impress people or to, establish a certain status quo or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, when I was living in London, a lot of my friends were of the older generation, because I take advice from them that I couldn't get from my peers. There's no way they could offer that advice, And I always say sometimes, make your decisions like a 65-year-old, because a 65-year-old will make a different decision compared to a 21-year-old.
I like that.
Sometimes with our lives and with social media and with the busyness, we sometimes get very stressed out. And young people don't know how to process that stress. So I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion on dealing with stress?
First and foremost, stress is the precursor to success. Anxiety is designed to make us perform. It is stress unmanaged that will kill you. So having stress is a wonderful thing in your life. It's just having that stress managed. So your stress is your driving force. It's what makes you get up, and it's your fight or flight response. It's designed in us to be designed to be stressed out so that we can get up and do something about it.
Yeah.
But stress can be managed. So first of all, exercise is probably the best way to manage stress.
Yes, I found that it really helps.
Well, I'll get back to the fundamental of how stress works in the body. Sleep also. So when you're sleeping, this is when your body is dealing with all the side effects that stress has put your body throughout the day. When you sleep, that's when your body's recovering from stress. So that's why sleep is so important. And getting deep sleep. So if you have your phone just before you sleep, sure, you'll fall asleep. And everyone's like, yeah, but I get my 8 hours. But are you getting deep sleep? So because only when your body goes into that deep state, REM or theta, both of them, for example, That's when your brain actually cleans out. They've actually found a study recently where they see that your brain can put, I think it was like 2 liters of fluid in an hour that goes through the brain, because your brain is just rinsing and cleansing itself. And if you're not in that deep sleep, it just doesn't happen. And this is where Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and all kinds of cognitive issues come from not sleeping. Then, of course, nutrition. Nutrition is a very, very big part of it.
Your diet, what you eat, what you consume.
Absolutely, and there are some amazing products on the market as well. I actually, with my partner Mishka Latib, we started a wonderful natural range. We're getting it SAPRA registered right here in our country. That's like having it registered with the FDA, which is really, really good. It's just so that we can prove all our claims. And there are quite a few compounds, some nootropics and adaptogens like ashwagandha, lion's mane. There's a lot of cool natural products out there that can drastically help with stress as well. So yeah, a combination of eating right, sleeping right, and taking good supplementation will drastically reduce stress. Now, what we like to call stress is cortisol. You know, cortisol is the stress hormone.
Yeah, cortisol. Yeah.
But you only want cortisol when you wake up. When you wake up, you want your cortisol to spike, and as the day progresses, you want it to subside, and your adenosine levels must increase, and your cortisol must decrease. But the problem is when we're in stressful situations, your adrenal glands will spike, and this will cause spikes in cortisol. And cortisol, when not needed, is pretty detrimental. Yeah.
If a young person watching this only eats fast food and consumes social media, never goes to the gym but plays some football, what's your 1 week plan for such a person?
I would say stick to certain parameters. First of all, breakfast is your most important meal of the day. This has been proven. Okay. So if you're going to have a healthy meal, have it in the morning. You know, like you said, you can't completely cut off all these things. So if we're going to manage them, this is going to be the best. So if you're going to have your fast food, don't have it in the morning. Your first meal of the day sets the tone for your metabolism for the rest of the day. So your absorption, your hormonal production, all of this is highly dependent on your first meal. If you're going to do if you're going to do social media and stuff, same thing. I would try not to do it at nighttime. So from when the sun starts to set, get away from your phone. If you have to have it, use it during the day when the sun is out. The moment the sun goes down, get away from blue light.
Yeah, because it doesn't let you sleep, does it?
Like I said, I can get into an hour conversation of why that is so bad. You have these ganglion cells in your eyes that actually pick up photons, and like I said, it works with the circadian rhythms, and it'll tell you it's time now to rise, it's time now to sleep, and blue light disrupts those really badly.
Well, and my final question was, in that person who consumes social media, eat fast food, and wants to start working out, they're not going to get your physique in a week, but what should they start doing in terms of working out?
I find the best thing is to start with physical exercise, because normally once you put in the hard work, it's rewarding. It's immediate. It stems from the same thing that you're getting from social media, which is that instant rewarding. It's that instant gratification. That's what training will give you. It will give you that instant gratification. So social media is all about increasing your dopamine. It spikes your dopamine, but so does training. So if you train hard enough and you push your levels hard enough within your range, within your limitations. I'm not saying go train like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was young. You know, just break a sweat. Just break a sweat. That's all you got to do.
Break a sweat. I like that.
Dr. Andrew Huberman, who I love his work, he says just for 30 minutes, climb on a bicycle or run, and imagine someone's chasing you with a syringe full of poison, and just run or cycle as hard as you can for 20 to 30 minutes, and that's it. And you'll be surprised. And normally what I find is when people put in this kind of work, then they're like, you know what? I'm going to eat a little bit better because I'm working really hard and I'm not getting any results, you know. And this is where social media can be tweaked slightly, because then you can follow, a lot of fitness experts and things like that, and at least then you're getting positive feedback, you know, in terms of
your algorithm will change as well, so you're actually making social media work for you.
You're not going to get a great physique or even those dopamine spikes unless you put in the work.
Well, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for your time, and hope to talk to you again soon.
I look forward to it. I really do. Thank you so much.